Good afternoon, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here, and welcome back to another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Thursday, June 19th, 2025. In this update, while the main development region, the Caribbean, and the Gulf are looking at no tropical weather activity over the next 1 to 2 weeks, I am still indicating that that's going to be changing once we go into the early to the middle part of July, and anybody watching this video needs to be paying close attention because there is going to be the potential for a narrow window of opportunity for some tropical development out there in the Caribbean and portions there of the main development region. So in this video, we'll be breaking down all those details. So to start things off, here's a look at the latest GOES 19 true color visible satellite imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. There will be a link in the description below this video. And as we can see here on the imagery, we do have what appears to be a weak tropical wave transversing Venezuela here in Central America. We have another tropical wave coming off of Africa. This is also very weak as it transverses the strong trade winds coming in out of the east. But to the north of this intertropical convergence zone, we have a lot of stratocumulus cloud formations happening, meaning that the air mass up here across the subtropics and even across the deep tropics is pretty stable, pretty warm, and also very dry. And that's not going to allow for any tropical formation at least through the end of June. But there are some early signals here that will soon change abruptly as we go into the early to the middle of July, as we have a convective coupled Kelvin wave that is going to help to initiate at least stronger tropical waves off of Africa. And will those develop? That is a very hard question to answer in this video. But one thing's for sure, we're going to need to start watching the Atlantic a bit closer once we go into early and middle of July. Now, when we take a look at our latest Saheran Air layer analysis here from the University of Wisconsin, these are great images to actually look at, and it gives us a picture of how much dry, dusty, warm Saharan air there actually is. Not necessarily dusty in all of this, but it's very dry, and it's not going to allow for any convection, any tropical waves to thrive off of. And all this drier air here is just winning out, especially coming off of Africa here. We have red and pink colors indicating we have a lot of dry, warm, dusty air there. And this is going to be moving off of Africa in the next day or so, and it's going to be transversing the main development region, keeping the main development region very quiet and free of any intense tropical wave development for the time being, as we have a strong Bermuda and Azores high up here, keeping things stable and keeping the trade winds very strong. And it's not just the Saharan dust and dry air that we're looking at that's coming off of Africa. We're also looking at a lot of deep layer vertical wind shear that is pretty strong for the middle of June here, especially over the Caribbean, where we have deep layer vertical wind shear on the order of 40 to 60 knots, folks. This is very, very unfavorable. And boy, I mean, it's so unfavorable that we're seeing dry air. These tropical waves cannot even survive this amount of deep layer vertical wind shear. So as long as this is in place, our season is off to a really slow start, but don't get all used to that, because once we do again get into July, we are going to potentially look at this really abating very quickly, and the potential for things to open up here in the main development region will be increasing as we go into early and middle of July. Also looking at the vorticity plot, this is how much spin is in the atmosphere at 5,000 feet above the surface. And what we're looking for here is any red colors that indicate a lot of spin in the atmosphere. Now, of course, we got cyclones up here. These are non-tropical, so we're not concerned about those. We're looking down here in the deep tropics, where if we are going to be looking for any strong tropical wave or a tropical depression, storm, or hurricane, we would be looking for yellow, orange, red, and pink colors. We are not seeing that right now, and this is very, very stable with strong trade winds, drier air, and deep layer vertical wind shear, keeping things very quiet for the time being, even in our vorticity plot analysis that you're looking at. So now, with that being said, here's a look at the latest GFS 12Z model run for your Thursday afternoon here on the 19th of June, 2025. And what we're looking at here is a 3-plot system. So the color shading that you see on your screen denotes where we have stronger spin in the atmosphere. Okay, so this is a great way to analyze and to diagnose where we have a tropical cyclone, where we have a subtropical storm, or simply a high latitude tropical or a non-tropical cyclone. Okay, so we don't have anything to worry about here in the main development region. Strong trade winds, drier air in the medium term forecast. And when we go out to 3 to 4 days, pretty much the same old kind of thing. We're not seeing anything that really worries me, that sticks out, that, oh, we're going to have a hurricane. No, we have a pretty strong, well-established Bermuda and Azores high out here. Even the eastern seaboard is going to be cooking and smothering with some very hot temperatures, high heat indexes. It's not looking good there at all, thanks to a lot of upper-level ridging over the eastern seaboard there of the United States, and that goes all the way into much of the North Atlantic, keeping the subtropics and the deep tropics down here very quiet. But that's not going to last forever, because as we go into early July here, you can see how the pattern is going to eventually change. And what I mean by that is on the 3rd and the 4th of July especially, we do have a tropical wave that is going to be coming off of Africa. This is not only being represented here on the GFS model. I will show you the European model here in just a little bit, showing us a similar case of this. This is a pretty strong tropical wave, because when we look down to the south, we have southwesterly flow. This is a shifting and a reversal with our typical trade winds that come off of Africa, and all the trade winds are up here to the north. Now, this does not mean this is going to develop into a tropical storm or a hurricane, because for one thing, it's really broad. And secondly, there is plentiful of drier air to the north of this, and there is a little bit of vertical deep layer wind shear that is going to at least try to suppress this from developing. But the thing you need to understand is just because it doesn't develop over here, okay, does not mean it's not going to develop over here in the Caribbean or in the Gulf. Like we saw with Beryl, right? Beryl didn't form very early here in the Atlantic right off of Africa. It took its own sweet time. And so that's what we need to be aware of, all right? And what we're looking at here is an early signal for early July for the potential for some development. And then beyond that, we could see more tropical waves like one down here that we need to monitor that comes off of Africa. And these are at lower latitudes than they should be, with a strong Azores and Bermuda high, strong trade winds to the north with westerly winds down here. This is an area to really watch for tropical development for early July. Now, when looking at the latest European model, this is the 12Z output. You can see again the belt of strong trade winds to the north, where the intertropical convergence zone is located to the south. Very strong trade winds continuing across the Caribbean. And they are much stronger than they were this time last year, which explains what I'm about to show you is the sea surface temperatures that are acting a little strange down there. And then when we go forward here, you can see, the trade winds are going to continue to be pretty strong over the next 5 or 7 days. And then beyond that, out to 10 days through the end of June, still really strong trade winds here. But look what's happening over here across the far eastern Atlantic, tropical Atlantic. Yep, trade winds are really relaxing there over the Cabo Verde Islands. And that usually means what? Tropical wave formation is increasing. We can see already here how we get our circulation. Our winds are pretty much due southwesterly, similar to our GFS model. This is an early signal out there in the deep tropics for the potential for something to form up, especially after the first full week of July. Early to mid-July-ish is what we're thinking here, which we need to really, again, watch the MDR. And eventually in the Caribbean later down the road, and then, of course, the Gulf once we get into August. Now, what about that environmental forecast as far as our deep relative humidity plot looks? Well, this is over the next 6 to 12 hours, and look at how dry the deep tropics here are in the main development region off of Africa. This is a very, very suppressive phase by all means. There is just literally no tropical waves out there, and if there are, they are very, very weak. not strong at all. And this is going to continue over the next several days where we have all this drier air. Man, look at this. I mean, this is as dry as it can possibly get down here in very low latitudes, with maybe once in a blue moon we get a tropical wave. But it's not until we get beyond the 10-day forecast when things look to change a little bit more. You can see here's a nice good tropical wave here. Here's another one lined up. Maybe a weak one moving into the Eastern Caribbean once we go into early part of July. So yes, there's a lot of dry air out there, but we're starting to tilt things a little bit for the more favorable background state as we go into the first full week of July. When it comes to those upper level winds, that's what I like to look at here in today's video, is the 200 millibar flow chart. And this is at around, say, 38,000 feet where jet planes fly. And what we're looking for here is a reduction of those 200 millibar winds coming out of the west, because as you know, easterly winds beneath that westerly flow at the surface, you're going to get deep layer vertical westerly shear here that is pretty strong. And so as we go forward over the next 5 to 7 days, you can see how these westerly winds slowly abate. They take their own sweet time, but they slowly abate. And look at this, even in the Eastern Caribbean, they really weaken. And we start getting this easterly jet in the upper levels of the atmosphere that starts increasing with anticyclonic, or what we call anticyclonic wave breaking. Well, not really wave breaking in this case, but anticyclonic Rossby wave activity that comes off of Africa. And this could actually augment these tropical waves a little bit more to their southeastern quadrant counterparts. And that is why, again, early July, mid-July is our new window that I'm aiming for. Now, I've said this in the past, like, oh, David, you thought there was going to be tropical development in the middle of June, and it never happened. Well, again, models and forecasts do change unexpectedly, and we have to understand that. But I'm a little bit more confident in this go-around because we are going to be entering mid-July, which is only roughly about 2 months away at this given point before the peak of hurricane season. That's the traditional peak, the heightened activity out there. So when we look at the GFS here, when it comes to the deep layer vertical wind shear, I'm just going to move through this pretty quickly. You can see that red ribbon indicating very strong vertical wind shear over 40 to 50 knots, and that's going to continue over the next 10 days. But look what happens. Look what's going to happen here. Over eastern and central portion there of the main development region, we do get some vertical wind shear, but look at how it's anticyclonic. See that? That is what we're looking for. We're not seeing the vertical wind shear cutting across like this across the main development region, which is why, again, these tropical waves coming off of Africa by early July have a bit more better oomph with them. So with that being said, the National Hurricane Center does not expect any tropical development over the next 7 days, which is good. I know a lot of you are already thinking about going to the Caribbean or going to a resort for 4th of July. I know I am going to be back at home after going on my early vacation for late June into early July to Portland, Oregon. But for you all that is going to, say, Venezuela, to Costa Rica, to Aruba, if you're going to the Yucatan, looks good. No concerns of any hurricanes or tropical storms this go around, which is nice to see. So yes, move forward with those vacation plans if you have them in place already, because I'm not seeing anything significant for the time being all the way through the very early of July. Now, with that all out of the way, let's take a look now at our forecast as far as any convective coupled Kelvin waves or MJO signals that we need to be aware of when we look at our velocity potential anomaly here. And I know there's no thumbnail here to illustrate, but where we are really focused on is this area right here in black. Okay, so I put a black box. That's basically the Atlantic side, where we have the Gulf, where we have the Caribbean, the main development region, even off of Africa here. So this area is where we are looking at for any potential for maybe some forcing to get things started. So what we have here is in early July, we have a very weak signal of a weak convective coupled Kelvin wave. But then in the middle of July, we have another more stronger convective coupled Kelvin wave that rotates across the Atlantic. And these little areas is basically localized forcing within a favorable MJO environment where we can get tropical waves that develop into tropical storms, or if not hurricanes, okay? So these are the next two areas of potential window of opportunity for tropical development out there in the main development region and in the Caribbean from about early July through the middle part of the month. So now, where are we at as far as the hurricane season goes? Well, when we take a look here at this graphic that I've created, I did not create the yellow and red colors. The NHC actually did that, so a big round of applause goes to them for that. But the annotations here, we are here now, June 19th. The numbers that you see here is what I created to help you all illustrate where we're at versus me just drawing circles and whatnot. So as far as it goes for June 19th on this very day, okay, since 1944, there have been 10 named storms that have formed on this very day and only one hurricane. So in other words, this is a very low inactive part of the Atlantic hurricane season, and we have a long way to go, okay? So even in the middle part of July, we don't see a whole lot of activity typically. It's not usually until we get into the second half of August into early September, even even the entire month of September is when we have hyperactive activity typically in the month. So we have a long way to go, folks. So don't think that, oh, it's quiet now and this is going to last forever, because nothing will last forever. As you can see, last year, we thought the season was going to be a bust, and in some sense, it did kind of bust, but we were able to squeeze out 18 named storms. And 2 of those were Category 5 hurricanes, and both of those impacted land areas. So we cannot ever cancel out and be like, oh, the season's going to be a buster. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a dead season. Because after all, we have 99% of the hurricane season to go, and we're not even a quarter of a way there just yet. Really quickly, I did want to show you all the latest sea surface temperatures here in the Gulf. This is pretty concerning already. There is a big patch of area here where we are seeing sea surface temperatures around 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. This is bad. This is really concerning because all of this heat is only going to add up and pile up as we go throughout the rest of June into July, into August, and early September, when the Gulf typically reaches its peak temperature. So just how much warmer is this going to get? That is going to be very, very important to take note of. But right now, it is warm enough to support intense to violent hurricanes. And when we look at our sea surface temperature anomaly, it is also running well ahead of where it should be for this time of the year. So that's a given. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this video too is the overall sea surface temperature anomaly footprint. You can see this is from NOAA Coral Reef Watch. This is the most trusted website you could actually find sea surface temperatures from out of anything, because NOAA is a high credibility government agency that we totally rely off of. And so you can see here the subtropic or the deep tropics and the subtropics are running well above normal right now. And that cold patch of water is basically gone. So the entire Atlantic now is actually about as warm as it was at this time last year, if not even a little bit warmer in the subtropics of the Atlantic. And the Gulf and the Caribbean are also running slightly above average than where we should be this time of the year, with much of the Eastern Pacific here overall as a whole with a negative PMM, which stands for Pacific Meridional Mode, running in the negative territory. So there is definitely a big signal here for the potential for this hurricane season to be quite destructive and active. It's just going to be a backloaded season, I believe. More like in late July into August and September especially is when we expect a lot of the activity. But anyways, if you found this detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Thursday, June 19th, 2025 being as detailed as I can possibly get, Very informative, very helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really, really helps out the YouTube channel a lot, folks, because guess what? When it comes to a landfalling hurricane, we're going to be live streaming 24 to 30 hours prior to a landfalling hurricane in the United States, including for the eastern seaboard and the Northeast. So again, if you have not subscribed yet, this is the time to do so to get my latest updates here on the tropics. Hit the bell icon, hit the like button, share this video with your family and friends on social media, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion.